Everyone, and welcome to Mr. Enrique's Brief History. Today's topic is the Gilded Age. This era covers the United States through 1877 to 1900. Now, just to recap, the Gilded Age is after the Civil War and Reconstruction. If you all remember, this brought the end of slavery in the U.S. and the great shift of power between the state government and the federal government. During the Gilded Age, the United States marveled with new inventions, experienced rapid industrial growth, built skyscrapers, and had electric lights light up the dark sky. However, beneath the surface lay corruption, poverty, crime, and great disparities in wealth between rich and the poor. I will be covering 3 topics about the era so you could get a bigger picture of the era. There will be Indian policies by the federal government, the political machines that corrupted the U.S. government, and the populist movement that brought more attention to the disparity between the rich and the poor. Starting with the Indian policies, many factors played a role in the settling of the West, including the passage of the Homestead Act in 1862, the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad in 1869, the boom of the cattle industry in the late 1800s, and the lure of the precious metals, like the gold rush in 1896. The settlement of the West impacted mostly the Native American population, and many factors caused them to lose their homelands and their way of life. There was forced removal. Beginning with the Trail of Tears in 1830, the United States forced natives west of the Mississippi River. A flood of settlers, both of the Homestead Act and the Transcontinental Railroad, allowed settlers to take more land. There was warfare. From 1860 to 1890, the United States waged war against the Native Americans. And finally, there was the destruction of natural environment. Settlers, miners, and farmers all caused the destruction of natural environment the Native Americans depended on. Many people wanted Native Americans to become Americanized and adopt the American culture, or the white culture. There was the Dawes Act, passed in 1887, a government policy that allowed Native American land to be sold to individual Native Americans to help with assimilation. Assimilation is to take on the characteristics of the larger group, being the Americans or the white culture. The government will do this by kidnapping young children. They will strip them from their native clothes, names, and family connections. One quote describing this act was, "Kill the Indian, save the man." They will stay in reservations, an area of land managed by federally recognized Native American tribes. By 1890s, most natives were defeated and moved to reservations. Back in the city, there was different type of corruption. The Gilded Age provided a new type of political system where city services were provided in exchange for political power. The spoils system allowed government officials to hire fellow party members rather than hiring officials based on merit. The political machine was an informal political group designed to gain and keep power under the spoils system. Political bosses ran the political machines, offering city services in return for votes. Political bosses improved urban infrastructure, provided jobs to immigrants and poor people, and did favors for local businessmen. The most famous political machine was Tammany Hall in New York. During the 1860s and 1870s, Tammany Hall was run by William Boss Tweed, a corrupt political boss that was eventually arrested for corruption and sent to prison. Many political bosses like Boss Tweed got rich at the expense of others. By the late 1870s, the spoils system was considered corrupt. A civil service reform was needed. President James Garfield supported civil service reform and began to move towards passing legislation against the spoils system. In 1883, the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act was approved, requiring officials to pass an exam in order to run for political office. The topic is the populist movement started by farmers. In 1867, the Garage movement was founded to help farmers with their economic hardships. Within 10 years, the Grangers had over 1 million members and began urging for economic and political reforms. Farmers blamed most of their problems on high transportation caused by railroad companies. The Populist Party was formed in 1892 as a third national party designed to represent the common man, farmers, industrial workers, miners. The People's Party fought against the interests of railroads, bankers, and large corporations. In the election of 1892, the Populist Party received over 1 million votes for their presidential candidate, though the movement didn't last long. This era is called the Gilded Age because of the obvious corruption and government failures, though it was made to seem like everything was great with the country due to the westward expansion, immigration, and booming economy. This era was the beginning of more changes to come in the 20th century.